I always say my name like it matters. I'm Ethan, I told her that first night, nervous, hopeful. She smiled and said, Lily? That was it, no fireworks, no music. Just two broke people sitting on a cracked bench, pretending the city wasn't swallowing us whole. You don't talk much, she said. I listen, I replied. She laughed. That's rare. I listened to everything after that. Her dreams, her complaints, her fears about money. I worked longer hours so she wouldn't have to worry. I skipped meals so she could eat what she liked. Why do you do so much? She once asked, because I love you, I said. She didn't answer right away. Most nights we shared cheap noodles and expensive dreams. One day, she said, I'll live somewhere big. I'll be there, I promised. I meant it. I always meant it. When rent was late, I sold my watch. When her phone broke, I fixed it instead of buying shoes. She noticed, but she never stopped me. You shouldn't kill yourself like this, she said softly one night. I'm not dying, I told her. I'm building. She looked away. Mark was the only one who said it out loud. You're loving her like the world owes you pain, he said. That's what love is, I replied. No, he said. That's what poor men think love is. I didn't like hearing that. Lily started coming home later. Work? She said. I nodded. One evening, I asked, did he do something wrong? She sighed. Why do you always ask that? Because you feel far. Maybe you're just too close. That sentence stayed with me. I tried giving her space. She said, you've changed. I tried caring more. She said, you're overwhelming. You don't need to try so hard, she told me. I don't know how to love halfway, I said. She didn't smile. Some nights she lay beside me, silent. I whispered, I'm here. She whispered back, I know. But knowing isn't the same as wanting. On our anniversary, I handed her a small box. She opened it slowly. That's it? She asked. I saved for months, I said. She hugged me, but it felt polite. I appreciate you, she said. I wanted her to say love. Later that night she said, do you ever feel like this life is too small? I answered, as long as you're in it, it's enough. He went quiet, then said, love shouldn't feel like begging. I laughed it off, but deep down I knew. Lily stopped asking about my day. She stopped holding my hand in public. Still, I believed. One night she said, you love me like you're afraid to lose me. I am, I admitted. She looked at me with something heavy in her eyes. That was when I realized it. My love felt like safety to me. But to her, it felt like weight. Even then I believed we were unbreakable. I noticed the change before she ever said the words. Lily watched me like I was checking on her too often, asking questions I was not allowed to ask. One night she pulled her hand away and said, you worry too much. I smiled and replied, I just care. She didn't smile back. That's the problem, she said. Your care feels heavy. I wanted to argue, but my voice stayed calm because I believed love should never sound defensive. Inside, I told myself patience mattered more than pride. And that understanding her mood swings was part of loving her without conditions, even when it quietly hurt me inside. She started saying it more often. You ask where I am too much, Lily said. I answered softly, I miss you. She crossed her arms. I need space. I nodded even though it scared me. She talked about bigger lives, louder rooms, and faster money. I don't want to struggle forever, she said. When money came up, her eyes shifted away from mine. Like shame lived there and blamed me for it. I promised her things would change, even though I had no proof. Only hope and a tired heart that kept believing. Because losing her felt worse than staying afraid of tomorrow and everything after with her. Her phone started lighting up at strange hours. I pretended not to notice. When I asked who it was, she said, work. I said, okay, and meant it. Silence replaced our laughter. Dinners ended early. Conversations ended faster. I told myself stress did this to people. Mark texted me, you're ignoring signs. I replied, I trust her. Even as I typed it, doubt pressed against my chest. I kept choosing belief over fear, convincing myself that love meant endurance, not questions, and that suspicion would only poison what we still had. Even if silence was slowly replacing honesty between us every single night when we lay awake together. One evening she said, you don't trust me. I answered, I trust you too much. She rolled her eyes. That's not romantic, I asked. What do you want from me? She hesitated, then said, "I want more." The word echoed. More money. More life. More air. I looked around our small room and felt suddenly guilty for loving her inside it. I defended myself gently, saying love wasn't meant to be quiet or distant, but she shook her head like I missed the point entirely. Her ambition stood between us, growing louder every time I stayed patient and smaller every time I spoke from my heart without anger. By then, denial felt safer than truth. I ignored the way she stepped outside to take calls. I ignored how she flinched when I touched her. When I asked if we were okay, she replied, "Stop analyzing everything." I apologized again. Alone, I wondered when love turned into something I had to prove. Still, I told myself this was temporary, that every relationship bends before it breaks. I remembered Mark's warnings but pushed them away, because admitting cracks felt like admitting I was failing her and myself. After giving everything I had for a future, she no longer described when she talked about tomorrow with me included there. The final night was quiet. She stood by the window and said, "I feel trapped." I replied, "I'm not holding you." She whispered, "I know." Then she turned and said the sentence that burned into me forever. "I can't breathe in this life." I stayed silent, realizing my love had become her cage, even though it was all I ever meant to give. In that moment, I understood she wasn't leaving me. She was escaping the version of herself she hated. I watched her back and felt something fragile finally crack. But I still believed love would save us even after she said she couldn't breathe with me. I heard her voice through the half-open door. She sounded lighter, excited, not like she spoke to me lately. I came home early that night because Lily said she was tired. I stood still, telling myself to walk in, telling myself not to listen. Then I heard her laugh and say, "I can't live like this forever." A man answered softly, confident, unfamiliar. My heart started racing as I realized I was standing outside my own life, listening to it move forward without me. I felt invisible, smaller than the silence, already knowing this moment would break everything I believed about us forever now. I stayed there as she kept talking, her voice dropping when she mentioned money. "He understands ambition," she said. "He's already where I want to be." I pressed my hand to the wall. The man replied, "You deserve more than waiting." She sighed and said my name like an apology. I told myself love doesn't end this quietly. But when she said, "I'm choosing a different future," I knew she wasn't speaking to him anymore. She was speaking past me. My legs felt weak, my chest tight, and I realized I had never been invited into this version of her dreams or her plans anymore, not with me there now. When I finally walked in, she froze. "Ethan," she said too quickly. I looked at her phone and then at her face. "How long?" I asked. She didn't deny it. "It's not like that," she said. I laughed once, empty. "Then explain it." She straightened and said, "Love doesn't pay bills." I felt something collapse inside me. She continued, saying my devotion was fear, my loyalty insecurity, my patience weakness. I never raised my voice. I just asked why I was suddenly not enough for the life she wanted. She looked relieved saying it aloud. Like honesty finally freed her from pretending with me anymore tonight in this room, alone with my heart breaking quietly. She tried to justify it calmly. "I can't keep living small," she said. I replied, "I never asked you to." She shook her head. "You ask with your eyes." That hurt more than shouting. I told her I loved her, that I believed in her dreams. She said, "That's the problem. You believe too much." I realized then she didn't want a partner, she wanted an exit. Every word she spoke pushed me further outside her future. I asked if there was someone else. She didn't answer, and that silence said everything I needed. My chest burned, but I stayed still, refusing to beg, refusing to cry in front of her anymore that night there. I picked up my jacket slowly. She said, "Where are you going?" I answered, "Somewhere I'm wanted." She looked shocked, like she didn't expect consequences. I wanted to ask about the man, about his promises, about how long she had been replacing me. Instead I said nothing. I walked past her while she whispered my name. Each step felt heavy. Humiliation wrapped around me tighter than anger, because I knew love wasn't what she chose and I wasn't what she wanted. I didn't slam the door. I didn't curse her. Silence felt stronger than anything I could throw back at her. My hands shook, but my voice never did, and that scared me more than losing her completely that night. I walked into the dark street and kept moving. I didn't cry until I was alone. I didn't call Mark. I didn't look back. My phone buzzed, but I ignored it. In that moment, my old life collapsed quietly behind me. Love had not failed me, but I had loved someone who wanted escape more than loyalty. I kept walking, carrying heartbreak, shame, and the realization that the future I believed in had chosen someone else over me. I understood then that survival sometimes means leaving without closure, without answers, and without the person you thought was home. That night ended me, and the man I was never came back again from that broken doorway where love died inside me. I didn't scream when it ended. I didn't break anything. I packed my clothes slowly and told myself I was fine. When my mother opened the door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come in, Ethan." Her voice was soft, nothing like Lily's last words. That night she made tea and sat beside me. "You don't have to explain," she said. I nodded and stared at the cup. Inside, my chest felt hollow. I kept thinking, if I had earned more, talked less, loved differently, maybe she would still be here choosing me instead of running away from the life we shared together. My mother touched my shoulder and said, "You loved deeply." I replied, "Too deeply." She shook her head. "There's no such thing." Lily's voice echoed in my mind, calling my love heavy, calling it suffocating. Helen said, "Some people mistake peace for boredom." That sentence hurt because it made sense. I lay awake that night replaying every conversation, every sacrifice. I blamed myself for not being enough. I asked the ceiling what kind of man fails just by loving honestly. No answer came. Only silence, heavy and unmoving, sitting with me in the dark where confidence used to live. Mark showed up 2 days later. He looked at me and said, "You look calm." I laughed quietly. "I am." He didn't believe me. "You're numb," he replied. We sat on the steps outside. He said, "She didn't leave because you were weak," I answered. "Then why does it feel like I was disposable?" He told me I gave too much to someone who wanted escape, not partnership. That sentence had buried itself deep inside me. "I miss you," she once wrote. I wondered when that stopped being true. My mother knocked gently and asked, "Have you eaten?" I said yes, even when I hadn't. She never pushed. Her kindness felt undeserved, and that scared me. I questioned my worth constantly. If loving fully made me replaceable, then what was I supposed to change? I didn't want revenge. I didn't want explanations. I just wanted to understand how easily I could be left behind after giving everything I had. Mark called me again and said, "This is the part where you wake up." I replied, "I don't feel asleep." He said, "You were." His words stayed with me. I realized I had built my identity around being needed. Without Lily, I felt empty, like purpose had left with her. That realization hurt more than the breakup. I wasn't grieving just her, I was grieving who I thought I was. A man whose value depended on how much he sacrificed. A man who begged love to stay instead of choosing himself first every time someone threatened to walk away from him. That night I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself for a long time. I didn't recognize the man staring back. I whispered, "You don't have to earn love by disappearing." My voice shook, but the words felt true. I decided something quietly, without anger or pride. I would stop begging. I would stop shrinking. If someone wanted to leave, I would open the door. Rock bottom didn't shout. It didn't punish me loudly. It simply sat there, waiting for me to decide whether I would stay broken or stand up alone, even if standing meant being lonely for a while. I met Victor Shaw on a morning I didn't plan to matter. I was sitting alone in a small cafe, staring at my phone without reading anything, when he said, "You look like someone who talks too much inside his head." I looked up, confused. "Do I know you?" I asked. He smiled slightly and said, "No, but I know loss when I see it." Something about his calm annoyed me. I replied, "Everyone loses something." He nodded. "True, but not everyone learns to shut up about it." I didn't know why, but I stayed quiet after that, listening instead of defending myself. We talked slowly. He asked what I did. I said, "I work hard." He smirked. "That's not a job." I told him about failure without using Lily's name. He said, "You gave away your power and called it love." That stung. I said, "Loving isn't weak." He answered, "Begging is." His words were sharp but not cruel. He didn't ask about my pain. He asked about my discipline. "What do you do when no one is watching?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. That silence embarrassed me more than any insult ever could have. He didn't offer sympathy. He offered routine. "Wake up earlier," he said. "Work longer. Speak less. I asked. And then what? He replied, then you stop leaking your worth everywhere. I told him I wasn't chasing money. He nodded. Good, money follows control. Control follows discipline. He never mentioned Lily, but every sentence felt aimed at the version of me that had collapsed when she left. That truth sat heavy, but it also felt clean, like something I could finally fix. I started meeting him once a week. He never asked about my past. When I brought it up, he stopped me. Stop feeding ghosts, he said. They don't build futures. I worked harder than before, but this time without desperation. When exhaustion hit, I heard his voice. Silence is strength, he said. I stopped explaining myself to people. I stopped proving effort. Lily still appeared in my thoughts, but she no longer spoke. She watched. And slowly, even her image faded when work demanded focus, and my body demanded consistency over emotion every single long day. One evening I said, what if I become cold? Victor replied, cold is careless. Controlled is calm. I asked if he ever loved. He paused, then said, I learned when to walk away. That was the closest he came to vulnerability. I understood then that power wasn't loud confidence or revenge fantasies. It was restraint. It was choosing not to react. I began measuring days by effort, not feelings. My hands were busy. My mind grew quieter. Lily's absence stopped feeling like an open wound and started feeling like space I could finally use to build something solid. Mark noticed first. You're different, he said. I didn't wake up rich one morning. It happened quietly, between meetings and late nights. You're thinking small. Now learn leverage. I asked, what if I mess it up again? I stopped begging rooms to notice me. When numbers finally climbed, I felt calm, not proud, like a door closing behind me. I learned to measure days by outcomes, not applause. And I kept my voice steady, my posture relaxed, my attention sharp, letting silence work harder than promises. During tough negotiations at work, Daniel became a regular voice in my week. Cash flow tells the truth, he said. Ego lies. I replied, so I cut distractions? You cut dependency, he corrected. We argued about risk. Risk is unmanaged fear, he said. I said, fear kept me alive. He nodded. Now let discipline keep you growing. I negotiated raises, equity, timelines. I didn't brag, I documented. At work, my calendar tightened, my inbox quieted, and colleagues listened when I paused, asked sharper questions, and waited, discovering that certainty arrives after preparation, not noise. And patience rewarded consistent effort over time for me. The office noticed before I did. Emma Brooks leaned over my desk. You look different, she said. I asked, different how? Calmer, she replied. Like you're not auditioning, I smiled. It is, I said. I met deadlines, led calls, declined drama. Respect arrived without flirting or favors, and my work spoke in rooms I never entered. Shoulders square, voice even, eyes patient, and I trusted pauses, letting others fill space. Realizing influence grows when urgency fades and listening sharpens authority. You've changed lanes, Emma said later. I answered, I built one. What did you change? I replied, boundaries. He laughed. That's expensive wisdom. I ended the call steady. Growth felt mechanical, repeatable, earned like momentum obeying rules I finally respected. I tracked metrics, refined processes, hired carefully, and cut weak habits, telling myself consistency compounds. While resisting old impulses to overshare wins, defend choices, or seek praise from uncertain crowds. During long weeks, quiet evenings, and focused mornings, building systems that worked, scaled, endured, and protected my attention daily at work. Emma stopped by again near closing. Drinks? She asked. Just priorities, she nodded. I like this version. It's not a version, I replied. It's alignment. We talked work, deadlines, strategy. I didn't perform charm. I listened. She noticed. You're hard to read now, she said. Good, I answered. Independence felt louder than attraction, and I protected it carefully. I realized wanting less made me stronger. Because choices stayed clean, mornings focused, evenings quiet, and relationships honest, without bargaining. Proving growth wasn't about replacement affection, but internal order and self-trust. Built slowly, tested daily. Lily, someone said. My chest tightened, briefly. I muted myself. I didn't spiral. I listened. The room kept talking. I noted the reaction clinically, thanked the agenda. And discipline decides whether doors stay closed or swing open again. By design, with calm resolve, steady focus, and earned confidence guiding my voice forward today. I was grabbing coffee after work when I heard my name. "Hey," Lily said. I turned slowly. "Hi," I replied. She looked surprised. "I wasn't sure it was you," I said. "It's me." She laughed nervously. "You look different." "So do you," I said, meaning it. She asked, "How have you been?" I answered, "Busy." She nodded too fast. "Yeah, I heard you're doing well," I shrugged. "I'm steady." Silence stretched. She filled it. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said. "Neither did I." My voice stayed even, my hands still, my thoughts quiet. Like I was observing a scene rather than standing inside it, letting the moment breathe without rushing to comfort either of us or rewrite history again. She glanced at the menu, then back at me. "Can we talk?" she asked. I said, "For a minute." We sat. She sighed. "I thought my life would look different by now," I asked. "How so?" She smiled weakly. "You know, stable, happy,